So I'd like to invite my panelists to introduce themselves and share a little bit about who they are and their current background, what they're doing today. So I'd love to invite Bukola first to introduce yourself, and then we'll go through the panelists together.
Hi, my name is Bukola. I'm the engineering manager at Carvana. I've been building mobile apps since the beginning of time, really. When I started on feature phones, you guys don't know about that. And then we had the BlackBerry, and then I did it on Android, and now I'm an engineering manager at a tech company. Nice to have you guys here.
Thank you, Bukola. And Dr. Seth?
I am Seth Dobrin. I am currently the founder and CEO of a consulting company called Quantum AI that helps organizations figure out how to use AI safely in their company. I've been doing this for about a year. Before that, I was the chief artificial intelligence officer at IBM. Before that, worked at some startups, worked at some other big companies, but been in the field of AI since graduate school, but accidentally.
And AI is the future, so I'm very excited to get into that. Thanks so much. Let's hear from Benjamin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Benjamin. Everyone calls me Flip. I'm the founder and lead designer at 88 Ideas, which is a creative agency design studio. So, I mean, we basically turn ideas into reality. A lot of what we do lately is sort of like game design, video game design, metaverse design, virtual products, digital products, things like that. But any sort of creative idea, we pride ourselves on being able to take people or ourselves from idea to product in a short amount of time to get to at least an MVP. I have a degree in computer aided drafting and design and a background in 3D modeling. So prior to starting the company about 2+ years ago, I used to work for architecture and engineering firms, 3D modeling out buildings and stuff like that. But I'm glad to be here for sure.
Thank you, Flip. I appreciate that.
No problem.
And Maria.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today to share with you some of my experience. My name is Maria Thorpe. I am a degreed electrical engineer. I work for the Department of the Navy. I am an engineering leader and manager of people and products. I have an opportunity each and every day to make a difference in the lives of others through different various types of engineering. I am daily engaged in human systems engineering, and the human in itself is a total technique and thing that we have to be able to manage when we put them in the different systems and experiences that they have to go through. I am working for the Department of the Navy. I work on aircraft, I work on ships, I work in integrating the human into those platforms. And so I hope I have an opportunity to tell you how I got there and where I came from. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Maria. And you will have an opportunity to share how you got there, because that is my first question, actually. I'd love to, let's start with Flip first, because, I'm very curious, like, how did you, what was your educational background? What was your career journey to get into your STEM field?
All right, so I feel like I have a unique story in the sense that I was introduced to, let me start there. I was introduced to 3D modeling. The first time I ever seen a CAD software, which is a computer aided drafting software, was at a continuation school, which I ended up at the last 3 months of my high school career because I needed credits. So I always tested very high in like against my peers, but like I used to hate doing homework and stuff like that, which led me to be a troubled student, but always bright enough to get through things and stuff like that. But I was introduced to CAD software there, and then I remember going to school, going to a college, and I wanted to study architecture, and they basically told me like, hey, we won't put you in architecture classes until like 2 years from now. Like you have to do all of these, like, you feel me, your general education classes. And I remember me and my cousin were sitting in, I believe it was drama class or something like that. And I remember leaving school that day, we reenacted a scene from some movie, reading Catchers in the Rye and stuff like that. And I just knew that I couldn't, there was no way that I could continue on that path, like, and be successful. Like I would have fallen like into like, yeah, the bottom number of things. Like I just was not interested. Like school was not captivating. It was a chore at that point. So I went to a school that would allow me. I remember going to ITT Tech, and they were like, we'll put you in a class right now that teaches you how to design buildings on a computer. And it was like, all right, I can come here. I can do this. So I went there, learned how to do that. So I basically have a skill set that allows me, where some people can draw and design stuff with their hands. My degree in my school taught me how to design things with a computer. So anything graphically that I wanted to sort of mock up, I can do that with a computer software. So that's how I got into I got into that field. And then from there, working for architecture engineering firms for like 9 years. And then realizing that like if I'm designing buildings, then that's the equivalent to the way games started to look. Modern Warfare, GTA, and all of these things. It was like inside of games are environments. There's buildings there. There's these environments that can be created there. And it was like, okay, I have a really big interest in that. And then they start speaking about the metaverse, and I started building like virtual offices for people to explore and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, I just gradually transitioned into building out like metaverse spaces, and I was able to walk off my job, start the company, and then full-time support myself with building out virtual spaces, environments, experiences, and then from there learned how to design video games, whole video games, as opposed to just the environments, learning how to program sort of game mechanics and stuff like that, able to expand the company by hiring people. So now it's me, and I have a development team, about 9 developers. And yeah, we can holistically design video game concepts, stuff like that. And we can do metaverse experience. But I also still have the skill to be able to just design products, design anything that I can think of in 3D, as opposed to having to prototype something in real life. So yeah, that's how I hope that was a sequential order into how I got to it.
Well, we didn't need every milestone, but what I love
Okay.
about your story that I know, I mean, I can relate to this because I was not a good student. And I also got lost in school, but I tested well. I just didn't always love my environment. So I love that you did tell a story of once you caught on to something that you really loved, you were provided the tools and the resources and the environment to go out and chart a path doing something that you absolutely love. I mean, that's truly inspiring, Flip. And I mean, that's a dream job right there. You get to build like these virtual worlds that you can get lost in. So thank you for sharing that. Bukola, I'd love to learn about your journey in STEM.
Sure. I started off in college first year. When I started school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do particularly, but I knew I was very good at taking things apart. I've always been that curious kid where I see something, electronical. I'm like, oh, let me take this apart, get a screwdriver, start taking it apart and trying to see how it works on the inside and put it back together. So I've always been like that. Like I wasn't a dolls, like let's play with dolls, kind of kid. I just wanted to like understand how machines work. So I knew that, I did want to go into something technical. So when I started in college, I went to Wesleyan in Connecticut. When I started first year, I just took a bunch of classes. I took writing classes. I took a computer science class, one in Java. And basically, my first project was to build something called a radio applet, which is like, it looks like a radio. You build it on screen and it has buttons to like for the volume and stuff like that. And I built it and I did extra features. And my professor was like, you have a knack for this. Like you should go into engineering. Like you had the best project in class. So just after that, I just continued with my career. I got my master's from NJIT in Masters in Information Systems, and then got my first job. I started off with C#, which is like a web programming language. And then I moved into the mobile app space, which ended up being like the best thing I ever did. I love mobile apps. Like that is my specialty. Back when I started building out mobile apps, we didn't really have a lot of smartphones. So I started with the feature phones. And then when BlackBerry came out, that was when I was like, okay, I have this idea to build this app. And it was a music app. It was a radio app for Afrobeats. I don't know if you guys know Afrobeats or fans of Afrobeats, but it was just coming out back then. And no one could get access to Afrobeats back then. And I was like, I'm going to build an app for people to listen to Afrobeats. So I built one. I put it out there, sent it to my friends. All of a sudden, it went viral. Like it went viral, not even just in America. It went viral in South Africa. It went viral in Nigeria and Kenya. Everybody was downloading it. They wanted to listen to Afrobeats. They didn't really have like access at that time. All the other streaming radios were not focusing on African music. So funny thing is, even like the big Afrobeat artists started like tweeting about my app, like, oh my God, I heard about this app. And they were like, download this app. It started getting viral. So it's like, that was my first love. And since then, I came back. I actually traveled to Nigeria. I ended up going to live there because, I wanted to build my business. I met a bunch of people, built out my business for about 4 years, got 500,000 people on the app. It went really well. And then I came back here to the US. Actually, I got recruited by a company in Silicon Valley as a senior engineer. So I started working on their app. I don't know if you've heard of Ancestry, Ancestry.com. I built the first Ancestry app. They did not have an app for DNA, which is the app that you use to scan. They didn't have one when I started there. I built the first version of that on Android. And after that, I moved on to Carvana, which is a car company. And I now run the engineering team there. So it's been a wild ride.
For those of you, because some of the folks in the audience may not know what a BlackBerry is, but it was the best phone before the iPhones. Like that was I wish they still had the BlackBerries. You'll see those in 90s movies references. But Bukola, what I love about your story, is this understanding that apps can be used for anything. It could be used for ancestry, connecting you to your ancestors, to downloading music. And that's what's really exciting about, being in a STEM career, and specifically with your role as an engineer, you get to build things. And that's so cool. I love that. Thank you for sharing your story. Okay, so Maria, I'd love to know who or what inspired you to pursue a career in STEM?
Well, thank you for the question. I guess for me, it was really not knowing what it was, what engineering was. So when I was younger, my teachers believed in me. I was good in math and science. So I was actually selected to go into a new program in Philadelphia, which is where I'm from. And the program was called Philadelphia Regional Introduction for Minorities to Engineering, PRIME. And that program introduced me to all different types of engineering. Now, what was unique about that program is that I had to attend every summer since 8th grade. I went to all the different universities and I spent time in places like Penn State, Villanova, Temple, Drexel. And Drexel was actually the school I wound up going to and getting my engineering degree. And I guess for me, as I was listening to Buka's story, she said she wasn't interested in dolls. Well, I wasn't interested in dolls, but people kept buying me dolls and they never did what I wanted them to do. So I took them apart and I would build them back the way I wanted them. If their arms wouldn't move properly or, something was wrong with them, I would spend time building them the way I wanted to. And I guess that's how I kind of got into, I thought at first I was going to be an archaeologist or, something. I liked the series with the archaeologist, what do they call that one? Anyway, that series where there was an archaeologist in it. But really, as time went on, I thought about being an architect and all those things. But engineering was something that, had a lot to do with math and science. So I could see myself doing that. But I recall when I told my family about it, no one knew what it was. I didn't know an engineer. I had never in my time been exposed to it. So it was new and exciting for me, something that I was really, really, really just glad to be a part of. And Prime, the program that they put me in, helped me to develop skills by doing projects and just getting engaged in the different types of engineering that I could be. And truth be told, when I was going through that program, I chose electrical engineering because at that time, they were getting paid the most. And my program at Drexel helped expose me to computer and electrical engineering. And so I had a chance to, get involved in the programming side, which was not for me. I couldn't get any of my programs to work. I had to have a tutor in that. But the funny thing, or something I really, really recall, is the Apple. Remember when Apple first started? They had an Apple Mac. Going to Drexel, we beta tested, my class in particular, and doing my senior project, beta tested the first Apple, the 125K that you would walk around with about yay high. I did my senior project on that. So I knew Apple was going to be fantastic from the beginning. And so look at it today. We all have our Apple phones and different Apple versions of laptops. And yep, got one right here. And so those are just some ways that I got exposed to engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So, Seth, I love that you bring the conversation to this conversation, your experience with AI. So can you share with us, how did you get involved in AI? I know you were the first global chief AI officer for IBM. AI is kind of an emerging industry. So I'd love to hear how you got started.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I had, and I guess let's just be, blunt. I had a very different experience than the rest of you on the phone and probably on the panel, and probably most of the people that are watching. Being a middle-class Jewish white kid, I was encouraged to do a lot of things that many of you probably weren't or probably aren't. And so getting to the point where I was involved with STEM was natural. I was always encouraged to do it because, a little bit of bias, right? Jewish people are always good at math and science, right? And so I was always encouraged that. But much like Flip and Buka, I did really well in classes that I liked, and I didn't do so well in classes that I didn't like. But I struggled through college. I got a good enough, GPA and did good enough on my standardized testing to get into graduate school for a PhD. My PhD is actually in genetics. And while I was doing my PhD was when the Human Genome Project was wrapping up, and we had a whole lot of data. And I had my dissertation, my PhD project had hundreds of images that we didn't know how to analyze. It had what was close to 1,000 different Excel files, CSV files. So Excel could only hold so much data, and had to figure out how am I going to process all this data And so that's really when I started getting into the field of data science, is, you know, kind of the practice of people who build AI. It wasn't called that back then. And then I worked at a couple of startups, applying the genetics aspect after graduate school, still also having to analyze all the data, so keeping that aspect, and really focused on human genetics. And so most of my early career was on human genetics, and I worked in academics for a while, all taking existing technologies and figuring out how to scale them up so they could be used for large scale projects and companies. And which also involves a whole lot of what do we do with all the data we're generating as we're scaling up projects or platforms. And so focused the first probably 10 or 15 years of my career on human genetics. One day I got a call from a guy at an agriculture company and said, "Hey, you want to come work for me?" And I said, "No, but I'll come talk to you." I ended up working there. So the moral of the story is, if someone ever calls you up for a job, don't say, you can say no, but talk to them. It's always good to talk to people. And, you know, the problem they were trying to solve was unique and challenging. And so I had to learn a whole new field, right? I had learned all sorts of stuff about human biology and mammalian biology and genetics. Now I had to go learn about plant biology, plant breeding, and plant genetics. And so I stayed in that field for 10 years and really helped to transform that whole industry. So the whole agricultural industry. And then one day I decided, you know, I wanted to go work at a tech company. So I wanted to take all that I learned at the agricultural company, helping transform that company. And I wanted to go work at a tech company. And so that's how I wound up at IBM. And I think it's really important for you all as young people, and I told my kids this all the time, that what you study in college is not what you're going to necessarily end up doing. And I've changed careers essentially 3 or 4 times, even within companies. And it's really important because we're expected to make a decision about what we want to do for the rest of our lives when we're 17, 18, 19 years old. You don't really know what you want to do when you're 17, 18, 19-year-old. You don't know what you're going to enjoy. You tend to do things, for the most part, or at least most people do. There's some people that absolutely know what they want to do at that age, but I certainly didn't. I was going to be an architect, and then I was going to be a lawyer. And then, you know, I changed, you know, what I wanted to do so many times before I even started doing it. And so it's really important for you to remember that, you know, your career is not defined by what you get your degree in. Your first job probably is, but after that, after you prove that you can work, be successful in the workplace, no one's going to ask you where you went to college, right? And there's lots of people today that don't even have college degrees, or even, you know, associate's degrees or technical degrees, that are very successful in this field, because it's all about learning. You have to be able to learn. You have to be able to keep up with the rapid pace of technology. And actually, my experience is the best employee I have, the best data scientist I ever had a high school diploma, and that was it. And, you know, he was doing much better than anyone else. Not that I'm discouraging you all from going to college, but if for whatever reason you can't get through college, or you don't have the resources to go to college, that's not necessarily a limiting step in your ability to have a successful career.
Thanks, Seth. Yeah, and you know, well, one, it's not lost on me that several of you have all pinged architect as one of your career options. So I think that's really cool. And to piggyback on what you said, you know, there are so many ways to enter STEM fields. It's not always through academia. But I'd love to learn, Flip, we'll start with you. What are some specific skills or knowledge areas that can be crucial for creating a successful career in STEM?
I think the top one, Seth just touched on is the most important skill you have to have the ability to do is learn. Like, and it's on you. You're responsible for figuring out the best way that you consume information. Like how information sort of registers with you is crucial for how you go about like following your interests. So I spend a lot of time sort of on the fringes playing around with emerging technology. Curiosity is another one of those things where it's like you cannot shut that thing off. Like always having the ability to be curious about things, and if you are not being scared to sort of start at the beginning, because at some point something grabs you that you're willing to go to the next step for and willing to go to the next step for. And people would consider me what they call a generalist. Like I know foundational knowledge from a lot of different areas. So it's like, okay, that always is helpful once you go to the next step in any particular field, because you can always bring in information, um, other stuff that you have gathered along the way. So in STEM, I believe just to have that, yeah, you have to have curiosity. You have to have that want to sort of go down rabbit holes like that. Um, yeah, it's just like an unwavering like tenacity. When Bukola said like she used to take things apart and put them back together, I did the same thing, but I wanted to ask like it was in my childhood, I never could get them to work once I put them back together. Like they never, like if I took apart a phone or something like that, it never worked. But it was always like, and I think that was helpful because like I never stopped trying to get to like eventually I'm gonna put something back together and it'll work exactly how I took it apart. VCRs, phones, like I would take them apart and like if I put them back together, like, oh, this thing doesn't work anymore. But it was that want to like at some point I'm gonna get it to work. And I think whatever that ingredient is one of the most important things, like when you're trying to enter into STEM, like not taking no for an answer when you're faced with a problem, like that want to solve an issue, that want to solve a problem.
I love that story. And it's so true. So much of what makes entering STEM careers are relying on the fact that one, you do have to have that curiosity, but two, most things won't work. That's that's the science of all of it, is that you have to get be okay with the process of discovery. And that is a huge part of what STEM actually is, right? Maria, I'd love to hear your wisdom on this. What do you feel are specific skills or knowledge areas that you feel are crucial for creating a successful STEM career?
Well, as was said by Flip, I believe you have to be a lifelong learner. So you might, get to know something, but things are changing. As Seth said, things are changing all the time. And throughout my career, I've had to always go back and learn something else. And getting things done and being able to have a mindset of creativity, we call it innovation now, being able to see something that someone else doesn't see. The diversity of thought will bring all kinds of things to the forefront. It will create all kinds of new systems, new products, new ideas in general. And so some of the things I think helped me to get where I am, starting off as an engineer, moving through the process as a senior engineer to a subject matter expert, jumping into the management side from a branch head to a division head, now to the head of the entire department of all the technologies that go with that. I mean, who would have thought I would have been engineering humans when I started out as an electrical engineer? But the human body is full of things that's electrical. If we were in person, I would do a demonstration of the bodies connecting and lighting up a specific light source. But, some more things that you have to think about as you're moving through life in general is, be positive, because that's what we're seeing is everything doesn't work the first time. And if you have a positive attitude and a belief in yourself, you will continue to develop and grow and learn and do the things you have to do. have a plan because life does not always go the right direction. You know, you got all kinds of forks in the roads and decisions you have to make. And so, if you're going to be successful, no matter what it is you're going to do, you're going to have to be positive. You're going to have to have a plan, but even more so, you've got to be persistent because that's been saying you'll hear from other folks. Things don't always happen on the first try. Things don't always work on the first try. You got to put something together as an engineer or someone in the technical space, whether it's AI, which is a new big thing. That's all new. You know, we're being persistent. We're using these tools. We're trying to see how we can best use them and make them useful for everyone. So those are the three things in general to being a lifelong learner, you know, being ready to accept new things is to be positive, have that plan, and be persistent.
Thank you so much, Maria. I appreciate that. Bukola, so I'd love to learn from you. What do you feel are some important courses or, you know, side gigs, side hobbies that the middle school and high school students can be engaging in to support their creativity in STEM or support a future career in STEM?
Sure. Definitely, I would say a good route is to start with the free websites that kind of teach you how to code. There's code.org, there's CodeSpark Academy, there's scratch.org. And something else you can do is like maybe go to your school if they have a website, try to see if you can update the websites for them, because that's what I did my first year. And, you know, I was like, you guys have a website, and I got hired. And I actually ended up doing all the updates for the website, kind of even redesigning the website for my school. So these are just ways, you know, that you can actually just start in STEM.
What were some of your early courses that you were taking, or some of
The
your
first,
classes?
the first course that I took was the Java programming, and then I also took SQL, which is a query language for databases. So those are the first two. And then, you know, of course, C#, C++ back in the day. But now, like, you know, there's a whole new languages out there. Right now, I'm doing Dart, I'm doing Kotlin. Of course, Java is still around, but the main two that, you know, that I work on every day is Dart and Kotlin. And those are for Android and cross-platform development.
So for those of us that don't know what languages are, can you share a little bit about what that means?
Sure.
And what do they do? Like why are they so important?
So basically, like the two that I mentioned, Kotlin is pretty much the language I use to build Android apps. So I build mobile apps for Android. And then Flutter is a new kind of like development platform that came out. It has its own software development kit. The language used on that is Dart. It's a new language that Google is supporting, and that enables you to build one application that will run on iPhone and Android. So in the past, when you want to build mobile apps, you would have to do an iOS native app, and you have to learn Swift, which is a language for iOS, and then you would have to do Android separately, native app, which is Kotlin or Java. But now there's a lot of more like cross-platform technology. Means you can write one language, one computer programming language, and you will be able to build that app, and it runs on, you know, both platforms. So Dart is a great language to learn. When I think about Dart, it's a combination of like Java, Kotlin, Swift. It has like all these different like combinations, but it works really good, and it's really, really like fun to learn. And it's like once you get the hang of it, you're gonna be great at it.
I swear, like every time I see someone, especially women, I'm just gonna say, because I'm learning more and more that there's more women getting involved, right, and becoming app developers. And I think it's so cool that they have this like superpower, because like you really can, if you're like, oh, like you created an app for self-care and you created it because it was a solution for yourself. I think that's what's really exciting for me when I think of STEM and the opportunities that I have to contribute meaningfully to it, is that I get to build anything that I actually want to build. If I want to see it in the world, I can make it happen.
And one more point, I want everyone to like be encouraged to think outside of the box. Like, don't think that you can't create something because it doesn't exist yet. I'll give you a quick story. When I was about 14 or 15, they didn't have the iPhones yet or any like smartphones, and they had MP3 players, which is like this small little device that you have your music on and you take it everywhere you go. And you had the flip phones, it wasn't like a smartphone, but you could make calls on it. And I was like, why do I need to carry these two things? Why can't they just combine these things? I want to listen to music on my phone. And that concept didn't even exist I was like 14 and 15. It never existed back then. And I used to tell people they were like, oh, that's stupid. How are you going to take a call if you want to listen to music? That doesn't even make sense. Yeah, you're going to be listening to music. Somebody's going to be calling you. Nobody's going to be able to, it's dumb. People were telling me it was dumb back then. And guess what? What is it now? What is it now? Even the iPod doesn't even exist anymore. There's no separate device. It's now all in one. So even back then, when I was a teenager thinking about this concept that never existed, everyone was discouraging me. Now Apple is making so much money off of something I thought about when I was a teen. So always.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that story, because you are so right. The amount of ideas I had as a kid that are now a reality.
Right.
It's so true. Thank you for that.
Well, I'm a lot older than you, because portable music when I was a kid was a boombox. It was like this big.
There were no apps to create for that, right? Well, actually, starting with you, Seth. So with regard to emerging technology, you're in the AI space. What are you excited to see evolve? What are the opportunities? How far do you think we can go? Because these middle school and high schoolers that are, participating in this, these are the next generation of innovators that can take AI to the next level. So where do you see we can go from here?
Yeah, I want to comment on your first question a little bit, if you don't mind, Lisa. I think, to build on top of what Flip and Maria said, if STEM starts with science, and the whole scientific method, which hopefully you all have heard about, the whole point of that is to prove your hypothesis wrong, right? And so you're trying to prove that this is wrong, which, if you think about it from that perspective, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're going to learn from it and you're going to adjust. And so you need to have that kind of critical process and thinking. And so, I always tell people what I hire for is critical thinking skills. I can give you the time and the space and the people around you to learn whatever I need you to learn. I can't teach you to critically think in a rapid enough time. So that is what I hire for. And so I think that's the most important skill to develop, and which is related to the answer to your question. This whole birth of ChatGPT, which hopefully everyone has heard of, and hopefully most people have used a little bit. There's a whole lot of angst among educators about how this can be used. I actually see it as a way to teach critical thinking skills. And so I teach a course at one of the city universities here in New York that you're required. The whole point of the course is to use these generative AI models. So ChatGPT is a type of generative AI model that generates language or write text in this case. And the whole point is to use it. And there's issues with it. It makes stuff up. It lies, essentially. They call that, hallucinations. So I just call it lying, which is what it is. And the students have to use the tools to do the projects that I give them. They have to identify what's wrong. So they have to validate the information they get back out from it. So they don't trust anything, right? That's the critical thinking. Don't trust anything and validate it for yourself. And then they have to put it in their own voice. And so it's a whole exercise of using this. And it's amazing the things they're learning and the things I'm learning from them in how to use this. And so what this ends up doing is it ends up teaching people like a thought process. How do I critically think? How do I use technology? Because that's when you get in the workplace, they're not going to ban you from using these technologies, especially by the time you get there. The expectation is that you're going to use them, and the more armed you are to use them appropriately, the better off you're going to be. The one caveat is you need to tell people that you're collaborating with these technologies, right? You need to be straightforward about it, because otherwise it's a form of plagiarism, right? Because you're claiming someone else's, or in this case, something else's work as your own. And in terms of where technology is going, Bukola talked about all the different programming languages, and you can think of programming languages as, so the language of a computer is ones and zeros. So none of us really speak ones and zeros, and all these computer languages that Bukola talked about are ways for humans to interact with the ones and zeros. So actually you're creating ones and zeros through a language that's more easy for us to comprehend. And there's all sorts of languages that you can learn today. There's going to be new ones invented. The cool thing about all of this generative AI technology is now these computer programming is a language, just like you can go on ChatGPT and you can talk to it in English, you could talk to it in Spanish, Chinese, whatever language not whatever, but most languages that exist in heavily populated countries, you can go in and use it. Computers programming is a language. And so these programs, these AIs actually can do computer programming. Some of them do a really bad job. Some of them do a really good job. And it just depends on the data that it's trained on. And so, for instance, Microsoft bought a company a while ago called GitHub, that all GitHub is a place that you put your code. And, you can think it's a good thing or bad thing that they took a lot of this code and they trained a generative AI model on it. And it's called GitHub Copilot X. And it can do a pretty good job of generating code. It can do a pretty good job of checking code and checking for bugs, which are when things go wrong. And so you're going to see a lot of these technologies being used to help augment humans in the near term. In the long term, a lot of people don't like to admit it in the field, but in the long term, it is going to replace people who are doing specific tasks. The total, end result will probably not be a job loss, but absolutely there are going to be humans that are impacted because their jobs are going to go away and they're going to have to learn new skills. And so that's part of why, to Flip's point and Maria's point, it's really, really important to make sure that you are adept at learning new things. And, the end result is going to be people who know how to use AI effectively are not going to be replaced by AI. The people who don't know how to use it are the ones that are going to be replaced. And I think you need to learn to, and then whatever the next technology is going to be the same thing, right? AI is not the last technology that's going to be this disruptive. I hope I answered your question, Maria, and didn't skirt, or Lisa, and didn't skirt around it.
No problem. Thank you. I know, Flip, you have your thoughts on this as well.
No, absolutely. Just as a person that creates different products and everything like that, in game design, I think AI affects all industries and how we're implementing this new and emerging disruptive technology. But I have to encourage everyone, even students or whatever, like, to sort of switch the way that you sort of are looking at your future, in terms of, like, I know we always speak about careers and stuff like that. And it's great to go to school and work for a company, but as a creator, like, I would encourage or push more of the students to find it within themselves, to sort of, how can you form within yourself your own company, in a sense. Like, in your company, I view myself as a company. So when I go and work for someone else, I still view myself as, like, my company as an individual. Jeremiah Benjamin works for this larger conglomerate. But with AI, it's so many, since it's an emerging technology and so many applications for it, there's no way that every application can be exhausted. So when you see people doing very high level things with AI, I don't want you guys to feel or be
sort of intimidated because there's so many practical uses for AI that are not sort of being explored or exploited in ways that you know it could be helpful. Maybe only you have the insight to sort of what it could be used for. So like one of the things that we're working on, use since we can use AI to program what we call NPCs inside of game, non-playable characters, there's now this thing where you can go into a game, and whereas like the characters that are walking around in GTA, even if it's not a human behind it, I can give that character a backstory and I can apply sort of like a knowledge base to that character. So now the character can be an expert on any subject and I can walk to it in a game and sort of have a full-blown back and forth conversation with it. So now like we're running into like conversational AIs and stuff like that. And like it's great for a video game, but past a video game, like so many people are interested in interacting with an AI outside of like I type to you, you type to me. So it's like, okay, how then can we create an app where like so many things are needed, so many people are unavailable to talk to human wise, that like I sort of need that information from them. Like sometimes if I'm doing something, I can't get a trademark attorney on the phone, but like if there's a conversational AI that exists that I can sort of preliminarily interact with, like, okay, maybe I can talk to that. Like maybe I can't get a handyman on the phone, like, but we can program conversational AIs and stuff like that, and then package them up in apps and distribute them. Like, and all I'm just saying that to lay out the point that there are so many practical uses that are not being explored, that it provides a lot of opportunity for you not to have to wait until you're working for a company to take that idea to the company so that the company can implement it. These are things that you can start working on, and that's how people go out and raise money. That's how people go out and form their own companies and hire talented people and everything like that. So there's not like this singular track to success when it comes to STEM as just a worker that works your way up. Like you can also found your own company. You can also be your own sort of entrepreneur if you feel like you have a strong enough idea and you have people that you can work with to bring an idea into reality. And especially when it's in emerging technology, especially when it's in a technology that everyone's just trying stuff right now. Everyone is sort of like creating things that will or will not work. Like you may as well try your hand in it. There's no reason that you can't. So that's all I want to add to it.
Thanks, Flip. And yeah, you bring up a good point, that there is no ceiling. There's no one path and there's no ceiling. You really can take your curiosity, your willingness to learn, your desire to pick things apart and put them back together. You could take it anywhere, whether it's building an app, whether it's contributing to a company, whether it's solving big world problems. That's the opportunity that we have when we enter into these STEM careers. And so Azmi and Maria, I do see I'll have you chime in a second. For those of you that are in the audience, we will have some time for some questions. So if you have questions, feel free to utilize the chat box so that I can make sure that to get to them for you. Maria, I know you have your hand up, but I'd also like all the panelists to think about, a piece of advice that you can offer to these middle school and high school students that are interested in STEM. What is a valuable piece of advice that you guys like to share as we wrap our conversation? But Maria, what did you want to piggyback on?
I was just going to say, as Flip was talking, We are at the point now with AI where we were with the internet all those years ago. People are just now exploring, trying to figure out what is the best way to use this. And it is an opportune moment for our young folks to jump on a bandwagon. Some parents say, oh, I don't want my kids to play video games. My kids play video games and they're both, computer scientists, computer engineers. And it's because they played those games and they wanted to make them better and they wanted to engage and they wanted to know how they could get in there and do more. I mean, my kid, when he was young, he was beta testing Square Enix games for them because they weren't doing things he wanted to do at 7 and 8 years old. He was calling them up. This doesn't work. Let me show you or tell you how to do it. So, it's about what you are passionate about, what you want to do as a young person will help you grow until, who you might be as an adult. It's not always about the education you get in the class. It's the education you get in life from engaging with your peers, your teachers, other adults, and just getting yourself involved in the things that you like and learning about those things from the different folks.
Yeah, Maria, that's so important. It is the things that you surround yourself to. I mean, when I was younger, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I feel like now I literally get to interact with real astronauts and have some cool conversations with folks from NASA and JPL. But when I was younger, I didn't have any access to that, right? I had no one, and several of you guys talked about people that have pushed you or exposed you to new ideas. And I think it's important, for students to align themselves with a mentor or get themselves involved in like groups and hobbies that will support their ability to learn new things and get exposed to new concepts. When I was younger, science fairs were a thing for me. I loved participating in the science fairs, and that was my dose of science reality. But I think if I had the teachers and the support in place, I probably would be an astronaut right now. Who knows? I want to get to a couple of the questions before we end on our advice for our students. So the first one is from Fascia. I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly. I apologize. Fasia, thank you so much. So Fasia asks, what role will cybersecurity play in AI? Love that. And what pathway is best to get started with AI? Thanks, Fasia.
So I'll start on that. And there's two sides to this. So AI will play a role in cybersecurity, and it is already. So all the bad actors are using AI to try and hack into systems. Maria is probably much more attuned to that than anyone else on the phone, given that she sits in the Department of Defense. And we also use AI to protect ourselves. And so there's lots of ways that AI helps in cybersecurity, and that's a whole multi-hour, could be a whole multi-hour conversation in and of itself. Now, there is a need for cybersecurity in AI as well. Because AI is built on a whole lot of data. So when we think about tools like ChatGPT, the technology underlying ChatGPT was essentially built on the whole of the internet. I'm overstating that a little bit, but actually not a lot. And so, we need to make sure that data is protected. Lots of companies are going to be building their own AI that use data about you. And so let's go to something that you all are well aware of, which is social media. Social media collects all sorts of data about you as individuals. And essentially what they're doing is they are monetizing you and using information about you to get you to buy things or do things that they want you to do. Now, that information is also sensitive. So they track, you give them access to your location. So they know everywhere you're going and what you've been doing and where you are. They know your name, your birth date, your address. They know all your gender, what your gender identity. They know all of these things about you, who your friends are. And so this information can be used against you if it's not well protected. Then there are ways to actually hack into AI. So to get the AI to do things that's not intended. So if you go back to beginning of the year with ChatGPT, there are all sorts of videos on the internet about, getting it to, tell you how to build a bomb or make drugs. These tools were designed, they put them in place and they had safeguards in there, but people figured out how to get around those safeguards. That's a type of hacking. Now there's more malicious things you can do that can get in there. You can, there's something that's called adversarial networks, which is where you basically are injecting things into the AI systems that aren't designed to be there. So there's an old, thing where, people injected stop signs with Post-it notes on there. And so anytime it saw Post-it notes, stop signs with Post-it notes, and it was trained that it wasn't a stop sign because it had Post-it notes on it. And so if there was a stop sign on a street with a Post-it note and one of the, automated driving companies used that data, it would run right through the stop sign, right? So that is a way to hack. I'm sorry, it's not adversarial networks, it's poisoning. So they're poisoning the model with bad data. And you can also hack the data and get the models and get data out of the model. So cybersecurity plays a critical role in AI, and AI plays a critical role in cybersecurity.
Thank you, Seth. That scared me. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because my brain started going, oh my God, all the data that's out there that has been collected and scraped. Very scary. What's a good pathway to get started in AI? I want to make sure we address that for Fasia. So,
sorry, I missed that part. So, I mean, a good pathway to do it is to use these tools that are out there, right? There's tons of, especially these generative AI systems, there's tons of tools out there. I mentioned ChatGPT. There's a really cool tool called Poe, that's POE.com. And they have all the different generative AI models available in there. You can build bots with them. You can now build apps or plugins that are on these. You can, if you know how to program, do computer programming, you can get access to the API, so the application programming interfaces, which is how you interact with these tools, and build your own apps. You don't even need to know a lot about the technology in order to build your own app with it. You can even ask ChatGPT to write you the code to build an app for using the generative AI system that's under ChatGPT. May not work the first time, but if you play around with it enough, it'll get pretty close. And then you can just call Bukola and she can help you fix the rest of it.
Bukola, yeah, I got you. Anyone else want to chime in on that question before we move on? I'll move on to the next one. So, Anaga, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. But Anaga asks, any suggestions on how to volunteer in the STEM related field for high schoolers? Who wants to take that?
Is the question, does a high school individual want to volunteer, or are you asking, how do I get into the high school and volunteer?
Someone in high school so what are opportunities for high schoolers to volunteer in STEM related fields?
Oh, okay.
What are some suggestions that you guys would like to share? Bukola, I know you were chiming in.
So there are a lot of community colleges that actually have programs for high school students. So it kind of like prepares them to like get to college because they focus on high school and even some middle school students. So I would advise that you check the community colleges in your area and try to see like what programs they're offering. A lot of it is free. There's also like online STEM camps. I know OutSchool, I think it's outschool.com is an online STEM camp for high schoolers and middle schoolers. So you can get onto that website and they have a variety of topics and programs that they offer for kids. And it's a great opportunity. But I would definitely say with the colleges, yeah, they do a lot of stuff for high school students.
So all the tech companies, usually not all of them, most of the tech companies have programs for high schoolers. They're highly competitive, but they are there. And so in addition to what Bucola said, you can look at the tech companies. If you just Google, and I just did, opportunities for high schoolers in tech. There's all sorts of things that come up for them. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them are free, but there's a lot out there. And yes, you can absolutely connect with the panelists on LinkedIn. I'm speaking for everyone.
Yes.
I'm like,
And
where are
this-
you getting that?
And the
Um,
same thing for DOD. We have a lot of free programs for our high schools. In fact, our engineers are authorized to go into the high schools and work with them. We got robotics programs, just introducing them to the different things. And we bring them onto our spaces and we allow them to see an engineer work and collaborate and just get exposure to opportunities as well.
Yeah, I also would suggest if you're wanting to get your students to be exposed to other people that are doing STEM fields, have them follow folks and groups on Instagram. Oftentimes, like Wonder Women Tech, we post opportunities all the time for high schoolers and middle schoolers and college students. To be exposed with our partners that we're connected with. But, some of the coolest opportunities I've seen are while I'm scrolling my Instagram, because I follow so many people in STEM. I run into contests, I run into giveaways, I run into opportunities and competitions and pitch competitions and just to have ideas. So I would definitely have the high schoolers also just start to check out some Instagram and STEM influencers. There's a lot out there now. It's like the thing to be right now. I love this next question because I was a kid from a low income household. And I often think, like, if my mom went out and found more resources I'm the oldest of 5 growing up. And for us, the buck stopped at all the things. So we didn't get access to a lot of opportunity to participate in programs because everything cost money. But what are resources that children from low income households can or school environment or extracurricular opportunities that students can have access to? What are some resources that you guys can share? Thank you, Crystal, for the question.
For me, I too was a low income family, grew up in Philadelphia. We had no money for me to go to school or anything. Grades helped me do that, and that's a whole nother story. I'll tell you how I got to college and didn't pay a dime. In fact, I've not paid for any of my degrees that I have, all 3 or 4 of them. Anyway, for me and for others, the school is the first place you should go to, your teachers, because we reach into the schools and share with them. The DOD has an ambassador programs where we're looking for teachers to train them in STEM with different projects. And I'm a part of that team. And we share with them how they can bring things into their schools. I know some of the Title I schools that I work with, some of them don't have science teachers, full-time science teachers. So I use the engineers from where I am, my young ones, my more experienced ones, and I encourage them to go into the schools and volunteer. We allow them time to do that. And so we're bringing it to the school. So first place, the schools, the local libraries, your boys and girls clubs. The other thing is things like NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. They have a NSBE Junior chapter where we're working with the kids and engaging them. So just a few that I can share with you. Over to anyone else.
I posted a link for Scratch, and Scratch is used all over the world. So definitely it's a project that started at MIT and now it's blown up to this huge project. The CTO used to be my mentor, so go ahead and try it out.
I think there's lots of online learning platforms, and almost all of them have some level of free access. And so assuming you have access to the internet, either at school or hopefully at home as well, that's a place that you can point the students towards. I encouraged both my boys to do that. I still do. And so I think that's a really good place. And then, I think, reach out to people who are doing something that you want to do and ask them, can I shadow you? Can I, I think that's also an underappreciated way to do it, where most everyone would love or would welcome the opportunity to, have mentors a student, or, have them shadow them, or, or all sorts of things like that. So I think that's a good opportunity, is just ask.
Yeah. And the last thing, I mean, you guys have exhausted some of the things, but the last thing I would add, when it comes to, especially when it comes to video game design or anything like that, since these platforms are monetized and stuff like that, like, it incentivizes very smart people to create content and viable content for platforms like YouTube and stuff like that. So most of anything that I've ever had to learn when it came to video game design or stuff like that, these companies, okay, well, Discord also. So like, if there's a company like Unreal is a video game engine that I use to create every one of my video games. If I ever have a question about something that I need to learn or do, or where to get started at when it comes to that engine, I'll first go to YouTube and type in whatever it is, how to animate my character in Unreal Engine. It'll give me the videos, and you'll find great content creators that you can follow who are incentivized to continue to post and tutor you on those things. That's YouTube is always free. And then their Discord. Discord is it's a program you can use that sort of puts you inside of, it's like a community building program. So like, you open it, everyone has, especially the larger companies, more popular companies, they have thousands of people inside of their Discords. They have developer channels, they have all of these things. So you hop in their Discord, and the reason Discord exists is, the culture behind Discord is to help people, is for the people that are in there that have experience to be able to give you answers. And they're dedicated people within these companies that have to address the discords and stuff like that. So if you have an interest already, or like, okay, I want to learn this software, Blender, Unreal, like I want to do these type of things, find their Discord, just monitor, just go in there and observe how people are interacting, look at the channel, see how they're interacting, and then you can implement yourself in there, and you can get some really good information and answers to specific questions.
And meet some cool people.
For
Yeah.
sure. Oh, and so, okay, this might be something. When I first started, there are websites where you can hire freelancers, right? So you can hire a freelancer I can hire a developer, a site like Upwork or something like that. I can hire a developer from Romania, from Bangladesh, India, anywhere. I can hire a developer from there to do work. But one of the things that I did when I first got started was I hired somebody to do the work, but I made it mandatory that they let me record the sessions and that I can watch them do it. So I sat with them to do specific tasks, but like, I watched them do it. So I ended up paying for it, and that may not be something for a low income thing, but it was something like $5 an hour. Instead of, if I would have hired a tutor or something, they wanted like $100 an hour on specific subjects. But it was like, okay, I'll just get someone from off of here to sort of let me monitor them for $5, $7, $10 an hour. And that worked out for me. And they gave me answers to specific questions. It wasn't like general information. Like I want you guys to solve a specific problem and let me see it, and then I now have the knowledge to solve that problem over and over and over and over again, for sure.
You just hacked a tutoring.
For sure.
You
Yeah.
hacked a tutoring session. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And you know, the other thing I would say is to continue, Crystal, bringing your kids to events like this, conversations like this. We're going to be having one of these every month on different topics. The one next month will be centered around innovation and education, with a strong emphasis on STEM. Because that is our background. But you know, bringing your kids or your students or those that you care about into rooms like this to be exposed to industry thought leaders like this amazing panel. I was blown away by this whole conversation. I mean, I can literally sit and hang with you guys for hours. You guys are literally some of my favorite people in the industry. It's why I wanted to kick off this conversation with you all first. In this series of conversations. Thank you all for those of you that could be part of this in the room today. Panelists, if you could drop your LinkedIn or any kind of helpful links. I see that you guys have been doing that, but feel free to throw that in the chat. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'm Lisa Mae Brunson. I forgot to introduce myself. I often do that sometimes when I'm running these things, but I am the founder of Wonder Women Tech, which is a global ecosystem and platform increasing representation in STEM, arts, and innovation. So all of these amazing people are in some form or fashion connected in some way. They've spoken at our conferences. We have conferences all over the world. We have job opportunities. We have internship opportunities. So be sure to plug yourself in. We have a free online community at Wonder Women Tech. You can check that out on the website. But definitely being exposed, that's the number one thing. Find your community. Discord's a great one. We had one. We had a Wonder Women Tech Discord. I don't know what we did with it. It's probably still sitting in there. Takes a lot to run that community. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to hang with all of you. Thank you for your mentorship. Thank you for your time here today. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this conversation. There will be a replay. I know we had some groups that couldn't make it today, so I'm excited to be able to offer this replay for those students to be inspired. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all have a fantastic Saturday. Bye.